Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Gaming Banter with David and Ryan. We're joined this week by Derek Wentz, one of the only writers that we haven't heard from so far on the show. So say hello to everybody, Derek.
Hi, I'm here.
And obviously we got David.
Hello.
So the topic this week that we're going to go over is MOBAs, and specifically what MOBA we think is the most influential slash best MOBA around. So
Dota.
So I guess I'll just go ahead and start off. Or actually, why don't we start with you, Derek? I mean, you seem very passionate about this topic.
Yeah. Okay. Start off. Dota. I don't know how you beat Dota in terms of just general replayability and gameplay. I got sucked into Dota by a friend of mine maybe 6 months ago, and I've been playing for I think 500 plus hours. I've put games in, and I'm still a newbie. I still haven't really even gotten particularly good at the game, and that I think is what really keeps me drawn in, is that I can play it so much, and I still have yet to play a game that's not interesting in some way or another, except for when I lose horribly, then I'm sad.
So what you're saying is you don't find a lot of the games interesting.
Well, they're not nearly so replayable. I mean, I can't think of a game that I've put in more than 100 hours.
I'm just giving you a hard time. I was implying that you lose a lot.
Hey.
So, but okay. So I mean, have you played any other MOBAs, or is it just exclusively Dota?
Pretty much Dota. Basically what I did when I started playing Dota early on was I kind of looked around and I'd watch gameplay videos and stuff, but I haven't really played a lot of other ones that much.
Okay, so what would you say is like the defining, like the big three things that make Dota better than other MOBAs?
I mean, obviously it's a little unfair of me to say this without having played a lot of the other ones, but from the guys that I've talked to, it doesn't really matter which other MOBAs you're looking at. Dota is a higher skill. It's not higher skill as in, I guess, how do I say that? It's higher skill in the sense that it's a lot easier to die and a lot easier to screw up and a lot easier to mess things up for your team. It's a lot more intense and faster paced, I think, is the impression that I've got from talking to people who've played LoL and stuff, and then switched over to Dota. But obviously they're biased. They quit playing other MOBAs and came and started playing Dota, and they preferred it. And that was kind of what they would usually say, is that, generally speaking, Dota's more intense. I like the look of Dota better as well, personally. That's a big thing for me. I have a bit of a hard time taking games seriously if they look visually kind of wonky, and I really like the look of Dota. 3, I don't know that I have a 3. Not in terms of comparison, anyway.
So I mean, David, what do you think?
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've actually yet to play Dota. I've looked up a bunch of stuff on it, and have considered getting into it. But yeah, I've heard it's a lot less forgiving. You can deny creeps versus in Legends, you can't denying being killing your own teams when they get low enough to avoid the enemy being able to kill them and get those points. You can deny towers as well. Also in League of Legends, you don't lose money when you die.
Really?
But the enemy does gain money. In Dota, you lose money and they gain money. There's a much heavier snowballing element in Dota, where essentially if someone starts doing well, they can really own their lane and then spread out. Also, stun-wise, like a pretty long stun for League of Legends is 3 seconds. I know Fiddlestick's Fear is 3 seconds, and that's one of the longer ones and very irritating to people. I've heard in Dota, like 3 seconds is about standard, 6 seconds is a long stun. So it's much easier to get out of place and have it really affect everything. So it's a kind of deeper gameplay and less forgiving gameplay, which I think just applies to different genres of gamers as well. And then also, I do think it's League started out with particularly cartoony type heroes, and they're starting to rework a lot of the artwork on some of them, and a lot of the newer characters have a lot more intricate, kind of less cartoony artwork. I remember, I'm trying to remember the first hero that came out. I think it might have been Pantheon or something that we were like, well, that's actually a tough-looking like character. Like every guy that you played that was like a tough barbarian had a big cartoony axe or something. So you're like, oh, and then like the first guy came out who looked tough, and you're like, oh, that's cool. At least we have a tough character now. And now they're developing more and more that look, like heroic tough, not like superhero cartoon. Um, but yeah, I like Legends, and again, I haven't played Dota, so it's hard to say. I might pick up Dota and then love it, but um, I do most of my gaming kind of recreationally. Like I come home, I work hard, I go I hang out with a bunch of friends, deal with different dramas throughout groups or whatever. Then I come home and I just want to like
Dota.
yeah, and so I just want to
It's like
like
a job.
yeah, like I just want to relax, and so I like League. Like you can play it. Sometimes I'll play like a really weird build, like a build I don't think is necessarily the strongest build, or like I like playing Warwick and trying to get every on-hit item because Warwick's ult stacks on-hit things 5 times, and just like trying to just pretty much only have an effective nuke, or just doing something kind of alternative just for the fun of it. Um, and so that kind of appeals to me to be able to relax via it.
Yeah, I know, I understand. Like, I play the hero I've been trying to get good at recently is called Brewmaster, and basically he's got like an area effect stomp where he does nuke damage, and then he does a bunch of stuff where the theme of the character is alcohol, so he makes everybody around him drunk, including himself, and so like they get missed chances and stuff like that, and he's supposed to be an initiator where he kind of goes in first and causes all sorts of problems and gets the team fight started, but I have this strange fascination with trying to build him as a carry. Every time I try it, and I shouldn't try it. It's a bad decision. But every time I try it, man, do I get flamed. It's incredible. Like,
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of looking to blame. I think it's an interesting genre, all the MOBAs, just because it requires such a heavy amount of teamwork. Like you can go in and you could be really great at Call of Duty and just shoot everyone up, and you could just have 27 kills for your team or whatever, and everyone else has 0, and you win. Like there's a lot of ways to really carry, even though carrying is not really a term used in shooters. But in all the MOBAs, like if there's one person doing really poorly, it's hard to make up for the fact that that's occurring. Like maybe you can offset it, but yeah, and yeah, so it results in a lot of interesting, just like I like watching intersocial, like, personal conflicts and things, and just like sometimes you can tell people, a lot of people play not to win, but not to die the most, which leads to the team losing. Just because as long as they don't have the most deaths, they can blame anybody but themselves for the loss.
Talk about that. That literally happened to me the last game I played. It was infuriating. Every time we go in for a team fight, like we had the problem was everybody on the team picked carries except for me. I had the initiator with Brewmaster, and we'd go in for these big team fights, and because we didn't have any supports, we really needed everybody to be there and participating. And the guy who was playing our hardest carry, who we really desperately needed in the team fights, anytime all 5 of the other teammates showed up, like the enemy team, all 5 of them were there, he would run off. He'd disappear. And then we were in there fighting, and we'd get slaughtered, and he'd be the last one alive, and be like, "What's wrong with you guys?" And there was a desire to.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm going to disagree with you both.
Interesting.
I don't think that League of Legends is necessarily the best. I think that it's the most famous, and I don't think that Dota or Dota 2 is the best, even though that's the most original and kind of the purest view of MOBAs. I've seen a bunch of MOBAs coming out lately. At E3, there was one that's going to be based on. It's a Warner Brothers studio game that basically you get to play like a mutated Batman or.
I've seen the Marvel one, coming out like all the different heroes.
And so there's a whole bunch of the big publishers are picking it up. Are they going to be able to compete with the League of Legends and the Dotas? I don't believe so. But I think as a whole that there is one game out there called Smite, which I've played a lot of and really enjoyed. And I would say that that's probably I don't know. I played all the other ones and it's okay. And they're interesting, but Smite is one that I picked up, and it's highly skill based. Because I look at MOBAs as a genre, and it's kind of like a mixture between a MMO where you have like these groups of players that you're going out and you're doing all these complicated things, and it really does come down to if you have a bad player in your group, you're going to lose. Versus other games where it's just a straight RPG. So MOBAs is kind of the hybrid in between that. But it's all about skill shots. And Smite, if I am not careful, I'm going to get trapped. You're not looking from the top down. You're looking from a first-person view or from a third-person view. So it's a lot easier and more realistic, in my opinion, to get trapped because you just don't know if there's somebody behind that corner. You don't know where the different people are coming from. It requires a lot more communication than just, oh, well, I can see everything that's going on because I can see everybody else's screen through Fog of War. So I don't know. I think that takes even more skill and more communication as a team, and also there's more room for error and more skill shots in Smite than like a Dota or a League of Legends, in my opinion.
I can see why it could definitely get like a strong following especially once it's totally like complete. Because I don't know if it's totally out or if it's beta yet. But yeah, once it's mainstream and marketable, I can see a lot of people drifting to it, especially people who are into like first-person shooter type things. Like a lot of people who are into, say, StarCraft and like top-down strategy style stuff will like Dota and League of Legends and maybe the new superhero-based one because it's all top-down and click and cast and stuff. But yeah, if you're big into shooters, I can see why Smite would get attention because it's definitely more in that genre and more in that play style where you're communicating and saying where people are hiding and where people are, and you've got your view and you're making your shots hit. Because I think almost everything's a skill shot, even like the AOE, you can like drag and cast where it's going to land, but you always have to like what do they call it when you aim ahead of the target to try to hit the target. It is definitely interesting. I've been wanting to check that one out as well, although it reminds me a lot of League back in the beginning when there was like half as many heroes and a lot of the heroes seem to have overlap, where it's probably still being vetted out, and they need to start simple before they can figure out how people are going to use the characters and how to then balance the powers and things like that. But it's neat. I like the god theme, how it's got all the different Greek and Asian and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have some cool features in the game, and I guess the biggest thing for me is, like you were saying, the skill shots. Because I'm all about communication and everything like that, and it adds an extra dynamic, because they've actually had some tournaments at, I think it was PAX, one of the PAX, they did a tournament, and it was, they had some Dota players and some League of Legends player come in, and they played Smite. And what was cool about it is they're playing from the first-person perspective, but it's being cast from the top down like you would see in a League of Legends or anything like that. So I think it's kind of like almost like actually watching a professional sport. In the sport they're seeing it from the first person, but everybody else can see it from the full court of everything that's going on. So I don't know. I think it has a higher potential to get big, but I mean not that. Yeah. Anyway.
The downside I could see to it though is like it seemed like especially because it's three-dimensional world and everything, so there's a lot more for your computer to process and a lot more data being thrown around. And it definitely seems like something that would be even more affected by even little bits of lag, because it is, you got to make those skill shots always hit, and if you're aiming at a target that you think is one place and your screen kind of freezes for a second, then comes back and you missed your cooldown, your shot that takes a 20-second cooldown.
That can happen in Dota too, though, because I mean, like if I'm experiencing any lag at all, I can't last hit to save my life.
Oh yeah.
And that city is really important. I mean, I think lag's a big deal in any game, and like so many abilities in Dota are not auto aim; they're targeted as well, where you have to like put your little
cursor in the right place.
Yeah, and then like a good example is a guy named Lashrak who has this really cool stun. It's really powerful. It's a big nuke. The problem is it doesn't go off. Like once you cast it, it doesn't go off for like 1 or 2 seconds. I forget how long it is. So it's like when the guy's running, you've got to plant it ahead of him and guess when he's going to run into it, or you have to have someone set up a stun for you and then stun him again. And it's like if there's any lag at all, it's almost impossible to use some of the abilities.
Yeah, although I feel like I don't know how graphically intense Dota is. Like one of the nice things I like about League too is
It's very
like
scalable. That's
yeah,
the
it's
thing about it.
super low graphics. So Riot servers, Riot is who produces League of Legends. They definitely have times when like everyone's like your whole team keeps getting disconnected, and it's really annoying because the servers are growing so quickly. Like I remember back in the day, I remember when we did beta, it used to take like 5 to 10 minutes to get a match together because there wasn't even enough people on the servers, and now
It's still
it's
that
like
way in Dota. It takes like 3-4 minutes on average.
interesting. I wonder
Well, I
we
think
did. Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say I think that that's because it's not as big in the U.S. yet. Like
Mm.
Dota's really big overseas, and I think it's really big in like the Asia market. Um,
That banter episode that we did like 4 or 5 back about how to get into the professional gaming industry.
yeah,
It's
Dota's one of the I think 4 of the top 10 professional gamers or highest salary gamers were Dota players.
yeah, it's insane in China and Europe. Like it's nuts, especially in China. Like you can't go like if you go into an internet cafe over there. Um, I was in China for a while. If you go into an internet cafe over there, like at least 7/8 of the screens are Dota. No question. Like it's so wildly popular over there. It's insane.
hmm.
But going back to what you said um, about Smite being uh, more skill based, I think that really comes down to the game developers. And I haven't really played Smite, so I can't speak to how well the abilities juggle out. But there's nobody else in the industry who's as respected as IceFrog is, the guy who develops Dota. Like he's some sort of MOBA savant. The guy's a genius. And like when he comes out with new heroes and new abilities, the guy is incredibly good at finding ways of making all of the characters interesting and playable. And what was really awesome when the last International came around, which is the big yearly Dota event that gets put on in Seattle by Valve, like one of the problems you have with any game where you have like different heroes to choose from is there's always some hero or class or whatever that's overpowered. Quote
Yeah, the best and everything
unquote.
else.
Everybody picks it. And admittedly, there's a certain amount of quote unquote top tier heroes in Dota where they're commonly picked, commonly banned in games. But the cool thing about the International was um, there was out of like the 108 heroes, I think there were only 14 that weren't played. Like
Hmm.
pretty much everybody got playtime. And the thing that's incredible about Dota, I think, is the guy who develops it, he's worth putting a bit of faith into. Like he's genius. And even I question whether other games out there, it's not so much whether they come out initially balanced, it's a question of how much effort are the developers willing to put in long term. And I don't buy. I've never seen a game developer that is devoted to getting his game balance right as IceFrog is. Like nobody ever.
Well, but I think you have to look at it from multiple perspectives, right? So MMOs and PvP games in general have been trying to solve the question of, well, what's balanced for years? Do I need to nerf this character? Do I not need to nerf that character? And there's always going to be somebody that's unhappy. There's always going to be. I mean, it sounds like Dota has a good mix, but I wouldn't necessarily say that because all the characters are well balanced that's the best way. Like one of the things we talked about in I think one of our previous ones was how League of Legends has new characters that they release and they're overpowered for a while, and then they get nerfed, and it's like, well, now I don't want to play that character anymore because it got nerfed. I think that's like a business model. So it sounds like Dota
Yeah.
isn't that way.
No,
Um,
everything's free. Like once you're in all the characters, all the items, all free.
That's how you just pay up front. Like
You
is it
don't
like 49? You don't pay anything.
nothing.
What do they? How do they? What do they do?
Basically, like
Skins.
yes, hero costumes essentially. Like you can buy cool weapons and all sorts of different stuff for your heroes. I didn't think I ever would until I started playing it enough, and then my favorite hero, who's Juggernaut, I broke down and I finally bought a costume for him because it looked really cool, and I play him enough, so I was like, okay, I'll invest the money. But they like basically the way it's set up is they have the game is basically the skins and all that stuff is built through the Steam Workshop, And
Hmm.
most of the skins and stuff are player made. It's really cool. A lot of the stuff you can buy, and then you just buy it through the Valve store. Valve makes a little bit of money off of it, and then the developers themselves make money off of it, and it's a really great system.
Also, you can make skins for the heroes and then sell them on the store.
Yeah,
Interesting. Fancy.
it's really cool. It's brilliant, I think.
Yeah.
So they actually allow players to make money? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically what happens is if you have the know-how to design skins and all that kind of stuff, you can build them in the workshop because there's like I don't know exactly how it works because I've never used the feature, but there's basically a Dota 2 workshop where you can go in and you can try to design some of that stuff, and then once you've built, like say you're building a skin for Juggernaut. Once you've built it, basically you can stick it out in the Steam community, and the Steam community will go through and look at all the different skins, and they'll be like, "Oh man, this one's awesome, Valve, you have to approve
So it
this."
gets like upvoted or
Yeah,
downvoted.
yeah, and Valve looks through and finds the ones that are really popular and puts them in the store, and quality content, baby.
Interesting. That's really cool how much of the community is involved even in the selection process.
Yeah,
Well, it's a good business model too, because I mean, then you're building loyalty of your users, and that's really important. Um, but yeah, I mean that. So I mean that definitely would strike me as making it better than League of Legends. But I mean, there's just
Stick
more
the
skill
bar.
shots. I'm just saying. But in terms of like when you compare to Smite, so Smite still has it's just too early. It's too early to tell if Dota or Smite is better. I like League of Legends and I like playing it. It's kind of like you said, David. It's a relaxing game. But I would still argue that Smite has the potential to be even exponentially harder than Dota 2.
Yeah,
Um,
I was talking to one guy about it, just the topic of what we are going to talk about today, and I was saying I think in a lot of ways comparing at least Dota and League of Legends and Smite being thrown in as well, is kind of like competing like Quake against like Call of Duty. So Quake is like super fast paced. Like sometimes you go in there and you play against some guy and he's like headshotting everyone on your team in like 2 seconds, and you're like, what are we doing here? This is all a mistake. Where I think Call of Duty, someone can be really good, but there's not that same like zero gravity mechanic where a guy's like going 100 miles an hour through like headshotting all your team. Like at least you have somewhat human physics on your characters. But they're both shooters, and so in the same way, I definitely think that Dota is the much harder, from what I hear, and much more Quake-like, where you have to know what you're doing, and if you don't, things go bad real quick. Versus
You spend a lot of
League of
time weeping.
Legends. Say what?
You spend a lot of time weeping.
Yeah, and then League of Legends is a little bit more the casual version, and that it's definitely a competitive game, and you can a really good player can like just carry a team, but there's a lot of things holding your hands. You don't lose the gold, you get constant gold over time. The more character gets killed, the less gold they produce and stuff like that. So it keeps you from being able to like heavy feed on stuff. And then I think when Smite comes out, huh?
That really helps nerf feeding. That's pretty,
Yeah. Do
that's
they not have that? Is it the same money all the time for?
they don't give a damn about you.
Yeah, here, like, if you get killed, you can go from, like, if someone has, like, a killing streak and you kill them, you get, like, 500 gold, but if someone's died, like, 6 or 7 times, they might give you, like, 50 gold or something. It's, like, nothing for it.
I wish I knew the exact numbers, but it's like you get a certain set amount of gold for getting the kill and then also getting assists, and then you get more gold based on how much gold they have. And it's not just any gold, it's specifically what's called unreliable gold,
Hmm,
which is gold you've either made over time, because you get gold over time in Dota as well.
interesting.
And it's also from the creeps you've killed. That's unreliable gold. Reliable gold is gold that you've gotten from killing towers and heroes.
Hmm,
So you keep your reliable gold, but you can lose your unreliable gold.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. And so it's based on how much you have, people, when they kill you, they get a percentage, so if you had a ton, they get more?
Yeah, basically.
So
And
if you
it's
spent
really
it,
valuable that, like, say if the other team has like a really hard farming carry and he's been sitting up there for 15 minutes farming away at the lane,
take them
it's
out.
really fun to walk up there and go, Splork, thanks for your money. Yeah.
can you steal gear? Because that would like make me happy.
I wish. I'll
Yeah.
be honest. I'm glad you can't because That would induce more suffering and into an already horrific game.
That'd be like, cause yeah, like one piece of gear could be like whatever 2,000 or 3,000. I don't know how gear is priced, but I can definitely see them all having their own audience. At first, it's like Dota and League head to head because they're the only two in the genre. Just like if say Quake and Call of Duty were the only two shooters that existed, people would like, well, they got to fight. They're the only two shooters. But as more MOBA style genres come out, it'll be Dota and League of Legends, and then Smite and whatever the next third-person version of Smite is. So the genres will start smashing against each other. Right now, the genre is just so small. There's kind of apples and oranges being compared.
Yeah, and I mean,
a ton of them. It's incredible. I think there's like 20 that are either like out or in under development on the market. It's nuts. What happened?
yeah,
I just fell.
he just died. He's dead. No more David.
I have my web camera on top of a tequila bottle. That's a little inside thing you might not know. That way it's in front of the screen. Otherwise, I'm looking above it or below it. But now, if I can look at you and the camera, I wish I had a mirror I would show you. This is behind the scenes. This is my tequila bottle. Gosh. I have life problems. How do I didn't empty this. My roommate's a mixologist. Okay.
Sure he is.
Whenever I lose a Dota, I just drink and cry.
But I don't know. So kind of back on topic. The coolest thing that I love about Smite and why I'm kind of like so infatuated with its potential is because So I play some CC characters, and you can lay traps, and there's no way that they're gonna know. It's one of those things where you lay a trap on the ground, and they have to, run over it. But you can be blocking that trap with your body, so I can like lay the trap and then run away, and they're like chasing me, and then I can trap them where they are, and then we just ambush them, like 4-on-1. He can't get away. I don't know. There's just a lot of cool things that you can do in the game, and so. There's just a lot more potential for trickery, which I enjoy.
I know Guardians of Middle-earth is the same way. Like they have what are called, I think, tactical characters who can put down traps and that kind of stuff. Dota was heading in that direction until it started going into the Dota 2, and then pretty much all development stopped. One of the last characters they put out were the Goblin Techies, which are one of the characters. There are several heroes that there's sort of a love-hate relationship with in the Dota community. One of them is Pudge, because people who play Pudge, he basically has this hook that he throws, and it flies across the map and grabs you and drags you away. And if your Pudge is really good, he's great at hooking people and sniping people off and killing people. And if he's terrible, he's useless. He does absolutely nothing. He cannot accomplish anything. And so you either love Pudge or you hate Pudge. The Goblin Techies are the same way, because all they do is they run around and they lay landmines all over the map. That was kind of when Dota was starting to do that. And I agree that that's an interesting mechanic, and I would like to see the thing. If I were going to level a complaint at Dota, it would be that Dota is very, very Dota. And what I mean by that is that there is very little variety to the Dota experience in terms of the map and in terms of the ideas that it incorporates from other games. That's not to say that it doesn't have depth. It has a lot of depth and a lot of variety, but you play on the same map all the time. You deal with, generally speaking, the same mechanics, which produce a lot of different variation, but they're still the same mechanics all the time. One of the things I'm really excited about, based on all the different MOBAs that are coming out, is there's going to be so much evolution to the genre. Like, I'm super pumped. Just looking at Guardians of Middle-earth, which was a MOBA that came out for the console back in 2012, there were so many little things that they did to change up how the game works that looked really fascinating. And if I had had $20, I would have blown it and played me some Guardians of Middle-earth. And Smite sounds really interesting as well.
Well, we need to wrap it up, guys. So I guess give your 1 minute, 60-second speech as to why your MOBA is better or why you concede defeat. David.
I still I'm definitely interested in trying the other two. I just always like to see what's going on in genres, especially if they're free. But I still like League of Legends just because I do think that it's I don't know, it's just a gameplay style that I enjoy. So I don't know if I could say it's the best of all time of all the things, but I like the pacing of it. I like that I can relax. I like that if I come back from work and I'm tired and I make a mistake, it's not the end of the game. I can turn around from that. And I don't does Dota release new characters regularly, or they stick with the same pool?
They're going to. That sort of came to a grinding halt when Dota went into being turned into Dota 2. Because
Mm.
I mean, IceFrog still develops the original Dota,
Oh,
uh,
interesting.
but none of those heroes have come out for Dota 2 yet because the lag between IceFrog kind of slowing down developing Dota 1 and moving over to developing Dota 2 has just kind of put the game on hiatus for like 2 years.
Yeah, that makes sense, just regraphing and everything. But yeah,
They're
so I do like that. Like, I think it's once a month or so they come up with a new character on League pretty regularly. And so that's kind of nice too, because it like does change like whole metas and stuff. All of a sudden, there's a different type of support that was never available or something. So you do kind of think, oh, next month, what's the game going to be like? It kind of does give it an evolution,
yeah,
which I'm sure Dota will start doing again, and then they'll tie out. But I do like that element of Legends as well. So
yeah.
that's my synopsis. That's
What
all right.
about you, Derek? 1 minute.
My faith in Dota doesn't come so much from the game itself, although I love Dota and it's a really fun game. It's more because of the people who are behind it. Um, Valve and IceRug himself have just shown themselves to be really savvy when it comes to knowing how to put the game together. The matchmaking system for the game is incredible. Like, you play with people that are at your skill level. Um, the way that they've handled making money for the game while at the same time providing useful content for the players has been fantastic. The game balance has seen like leaps and strides in terms of making the game interesting and playable for all the different heroes. My faith in Dota isn't so much. I think it's the best game not because it currently has the best balance or whatever. I think it's the best game because the developers behind it are going to keep putting in effort. And if some other MOBA out there comes up with an interesting idea, I think that Dota will have a reply for that, and it will continue to evolve and grow. It's the developers behind it are great; they're awesome.
Well, I guess I'll close this out by saying and I mean it's kind of along the same lines. I think that Smite has the potential to become the best MOBA out there, just because they have incorporated all those. So I mean, the the new ideas and the changes and just doing things a little differently, trying to advance the genre, I think is what sets a game apart. So if you're focused too much on, oh, well, in the past these guys have done a good job, then I think you could potentially lose track of the future. So I would say that Smite may not be the best today, but it has a lot of cool new features and it has a lot of interesting dynamics to it that make it even better, in my opinion, than League of Legends and Dota 2. Um, but it's going to take time to get there, and right now it's still in beta, so there's still some time to get there. But I mean, in general, MOBAs are a great franchise, but or not a great franchise, but a great genre of franchises. But anyways, guys, thanks for joining us this week, and hopefully this was fun for you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and feel free to take a look at our website, www.ultimategamedb.com, and subscribe to our channel. We would love to see you there.
And definitely also check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you like us or follow us, you'll be able to see when we're posting new shows and also a lot of articles. The Ultimate Game Database posts a lot of stuff on what games are coming out that week, how the consoles are doing in the console wars, a lot of fascinating stuff.
Yeah, so subscribe, like us, tweet us, and we will see you next week. Bye!